What up, watch peeps? Christopher Ward is one of the micro brand success stories, and I often wonder how many micro brands see it as a goal to grow as big as Christopher Ward has, or would they prefer to just stay small, one and two man operations? It's one of those questions I really like to see answered by the various micro brands. So Christopher Ward got started in 2005. It was three friends who shared an interest in wristwatches, and I guess they got to talking and realized how crazy the markup is on watches for some Swiss brands. They thought they could do better. And really, they defined the direct-to-consumer sales model that all the subsequent micro brands followed. I think they really played a big part in the birth of the micro brand. Now, I've only owned one Christopher Ward. It was the C65 Vintage, not the Diver, but that 38mm Sport, the first gen. I love that watch, but even with the in-clasp micro adjust, I just couldn't get a good fit. It was always too tight or too loose. And I didn't have that problem with this piece that we're looking at here today. So this is another review piece. It has to eventually make its way back to Christopher Ward. And if you are enjoying the channel and subscribing is not too much trouble, I would really appreciate it. All right, let's get to it. I'm Pete, and we are chilling with watches. Alright, first things first, wrist check. Thought I'd wear another blue dial diver today. This is my Bulova Marine Star. It's a quartz watch I've had for a while. It's one of only a few keepers in my collection. I just find it really cool. It has like these Seiko looking hands and this Orient looking bezel, which is actually a 60 click bezel if you know how much I love that. And the grip on it does suck just as much as Orient's. I have it on a minimalist style watch steward. Just a fun combo. I really dig it. What we're looking at today is the Christopher Ward C65 Automatic. And man, I really like this watch. It appealed to me right out of the box as soon as I looked at it. I wore it a ton. I love the big dial, the small bezel. You guys know I like that. It has a great grip to it. Very comfortable on wrist, which I'll show you later. Just a joy to wear. And I could see myself picking up one of these. I really like this watch. These are available on their site. Retail is $8.95, but I don't think anyone pays retail for a Christopher Ward. There is always a $125 off coupon or some promo going on. So you're looking at probably more like $7.70, which puts you just underneath that $800 cutoff for import tax, since these are coming out of England. The dial layout is a pretty standard affair of circles and rectangles at the cardinal points with a double pip at 12. You know, I'm not going to get into it. I don't care about the 9 o'clock logo at all. It doesn't bother me. I wish the 12 o'clock logo was a little more pronounced because it does leave a big kind of blank spot up there. But it's pretty neat. The way it's embossed into the dial. And I like the basic text down here. At 6 o'clock, I don't hate a 3 o'clock date. I know some people are real picky about that. The black date wheel is maybe a little weird. A color match date wheel would have been awesome. This crown is not a screw down crown. So you don't have to worry about the threads. But one thing a lot of people report is this crown catching, like pulling their hand out of their pocket and accidentally popping it. And if you go all the way to time setting, you'll be hacking it. It'll stop running. But either way, that could be an impact to water resistance. I personally wore this a bunch and I didn't have that issue, not once. So, you know, my Adidas pants and cargo shorts didn't really catch on it. But it's something to be aware of. So it has a Sellita SW200, so it winds very nicely like most Swiss movements do. Crown grip is great, coin edge. No problems getting hold of it from underneath to go into time setting either. There's a clear defined date stop in the middle, real easy. So it's a pleasure to manipulate, real easy to use. That is a signed crown, laser etched with their same logo that you see at 12 o'clock. This crown, I thought this crown was going to be bigger, but when I measured it, oh yeah, 6'7". It felt bigger than that, but I guess it's almost a 7mm crown. So you can see why on this really rather thin and beautiful case, how you might catch that on something. But again, like I said, I didn't have that issue. The case size, this is a 41mm case that wears like a dream. Just take a look at the case profile. All those angles, they call this the light catcher case. There's just beautiful angles, is brushed, and you can see how it kind of bellies in like Seiko's do, which just makes it wear like a smaller watch. It's extremely comfortable. This thing lays on my wrist almost perfectly. The case is fantastic. They did a great job with this. Crystal is a domed sapphire. You can see here, box style domed sapphire crystal. Really nice, just has a nice look to it. Water resistance on these is 15 atmos, or 150 meters. The bezel is just an aluminum or some kind of alloy bezel. There's a lume pip, but that is it. And you know, I like that thin bezel. It is a little darker than the dial. When the light hits them in a certain way, you can see it's kind of a color mismatch, and that bugged me a little bit. I can live with it. It's not a deal breaker, but it did bother me a little. The grip on the bezel is a coin edge that matches the crown, and no problem grabbing hold of it. Grip is excellent, and just listen to that. The bezel action is fantastic and precise. There's no slop. I mean, they did a great job with this bezel. Can't tell if I went one too far. Now we can't leave it like that. Drive some people crazy the whole video. There we go. Yeah, and the alignment was good. So there are not drilled lugs on here, but this also has that quick release bracelet. If you can see the two little tabs there that you can grab. And I usually am able to handle these pretty easily. Yeah, right off now. Now let's see, the tricky part is getting it back on. And some of the easier to use ones. Oh. Nope. All right, hold on. So when you have it right in front of you, it's really not as hard, and you can look at it. When you're trying to do it around a camera, it's difficult, but I mean, it goes on and off really easy. I kind of like having those if you're not going to have drilled lugs, because really the bracelet's the only one that gives you any trouble, right? Like a strap or a leather or rubber, that's not going to be an issue. The combo of brushing and polishing looks real good on this. You can see those chamfers are polished. My smudges making it look horrible. So you can see those polished chamfers, and then they go into that little brush stripe and then polished again. The top of the lugs are brushed very nicely. Same direction as the brushing on the bracelet. I love the bracelet. It's 22 millimeter lug width. Oops, which tapers down to, it looks like 18 to me, let's say. Yeah, it tapers down to 18. So I love that. You got a 4 millimeter taper. Can't be beat. I don't necessarily love that wide center link and narrow outer links, though. I wish they were a little more in proportion, but maybe they did that so it's different than the other Oyster bracelets. Also, it is that male protruding end link. So what takes an actual lug to lug of 47, well, and gives it a more true 51 millimeter lug to lug if you count those center links. But if you see how they turn down, I didn't have an issue with it. Sometimes that can be an issue, really adding lug to lug on a flatter, straighter watch, but there's a pretty serious turn down, and it didn't bother me really on this watch. The clasp is one of my favorites, honestly. I love these just two buttons. That's all I want. Actually, I'm starting to get sick of the safety fold over. This is great. And what this has is, here's your, you move this tab and you have a micro adjust in here. Let's see if I can, yeah, so you can hear them go in. And really nice, real easy to use. It can go in without pressing the button, but to make it bigger, you need to release the button. Real nice micro adjust. I got a great fit on this one. Didn't have the issue I had with my C65 Sport. Speaking of which, let's see how that looks on wrist, because that's really where this watch shined for me. And here it is on my 7 1/4 inch wrist. This size for me is perfect, 41. And just look how that lays on the wrist. I mean, every contour is almost perfect for me. I realize that might not be the same for everybody, but I got a great fit, super comfortable, loved wearing this thing. And here it is on the time graph frame. Just look how that sucker's running. That's beautiful. +1, +2, perfectly flat line. Amplitude 303 is huge, lots of power, running beautifully. And on the bracelet size for my 7¼ inch wrist, it's coming in at about 149, 150 grams. Really comfortable, easy to wear weight. So let's take a look at it side by side. Some other watches I have here. Here's an SKX. I know these are pretty basic watches, but I think it's a frame of reference that everybody's familiar with. So the SKX is actually about 1 millimeter bigger, but the smaller dial gives a little bit different look. Much thicker watch. The SKX, that is. Yeah, the Christopher Ward was a much more comfortable, smaller wear for me. Turtle, because a lot of people know that. Same thing. If it were smaller than the SKX, it wears even slightly smaller than the Turtle does. My 40 millimeter Invicta Pro diver, just because this is a standard sub style 40 millimeter watch that everybody's familiar with. You can see how that wears slightly bigger than that. Thinner than the Invicta, but does wear a bigger face on. And I have the Yima here, which is probably a real good comparison because it's another large dial, thin bezel watch. I believe the Yima is a 40 millimeter. Let's check that real quick. Because I have my suspicions that it might be a little bigger. Yeah, see, the Yima is almost 41. So these are really very similarly sized watches. And both wear great, and I really like both of these watches a lot. They look almost identical the way they would wear, right? And even thickness, very similar. Different styles, but very similar overall numbers. All right, that is that.
Peep the Lume.
And there is the Lume, Swiss Super Luminova. A healthy application, honestly, very evenly applied. The hands are looking a little more green and less white on the camera, but in person, well, I guess in person they do a little bit as well, but it's not as drastic. The Lume looks great. Very legible, very bright, even in person. All right, let's flip the camera back around. So that's it, guys. The Christopher Ward C65 Automatic. I really like this watch. Really enjoyed my time with it. I love the way it wears. I love the way it looks. I really could see myself picking one of these up. What do you guys think? Share your thoughts in the comments. Before I let you go, sneaker check. Jordan 4s today. All right, I'm out. If it's not too much trouble, like, subscribe, and come back next time. Peace.